Hi everyone, it's Wednesday, October 8th, and today I'd like to talk to you about actually yesterday's feast, the Feast of the Holy Rosary. We're in the month of October. Our Holy Father, Pope Leo, has asked us to pray the Rosary during this month of October. So that's that general challenge. I know some of us pray the Rosary all the time. Some of us don't pray the Rosary maybe that often. No guilt. Just maybe let's get back to keeping it simple and praying the Rosary. Um, a lot of times in the spiritual life, our Lord brings us back to simplicity, back to humility, back to trusting Him. Our world's so complicated, and we can jump into that complication. And the spiritual life, by and large, is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. And you think back to Our Lady of the Rosary, back to our relationship with Mary. It goes back to the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary. It goes back to a battle that was fought back in 1571, the Battle of Lepanto, and the Muslim Ottoman Turks were coming in, and they well outmatched the Christian army, and it looked like the Christian army would be destroyed. Uh, Pope Pius V, the Pope at the time, asked everyone to pray the Rosary, and they really considered it a miracle. So somehow they outlasted the Ottoman Turks. And so then the Holy Father, Pope Pius V, put Our Lady of the Rosary on our church calendar since 1571 or thereafter. It's also known as Our Lady of Victory because of the victory of Lepanto. The message of the Rosary is pretty darn simple, isn't it? I mean, you think back to many things in our church that are just so simple, and how God, through simple people, like defeats evil. Like maybe the greatest example in the Bible might be David and Goliath. David being so small, and just a slingshot, slaying Goliath. How incredible is that? And the Dominicans who have been, Saint Dominic has been attributed, bringing the Rosary to be, and the Dominicans have a great devotion to the Rosary. Maintain that the five stones that David took, from the Wadi River and slew Goliath, those five stones represent the 5 decades of the Rosary. Sometimes the message seems too simple. What, pray the Rosary and we can change the world? Well, yeah, we can. If you think back to Fatima back in 1917, right? Right in the middle of World War One, Our Lady appeared to the three children there and called them to pray, to sacrifice, make reparation for sins, Um, and she said, if we don't, a worse war is going to happen. And we entered into the Second World War. Maybe we're not doing these simple things that our Lord's asking us to do through Mary, to pray, to offer sacrifices for sinners, to offer up our pain for other people, reparation for sins. These are simple things that God's calling us to do. The Rosary is simply a way of being with Jesus and Mary. You meditate on the mystery. For example, the first joyful mystery, the Annunciation, Mary saying yes to the angel Gabriel, that incredible scene. And you meditate and think about that as you say the Hail Mary. It's a way of being with Jesus and Mary. And anybody can say it, from a child to, someone who's, way up in years. And so the Holy Father's asking us to do this. Why don't you and I do this? And even if, like I said, you're not into the Rosary, try starting with just a decade a day. Monday through Friday, you'll end up praying, a whole Rosary. So when we get back to our prayer lives, it's always about getting back to simplicity, humility, and trusting God in our own lives. What are you and I overwhelmed with in our lives today? What are you struggling with? What's your Goliath that you're trying to deal with? Get back to the basics once again. We miss the basics, and we're out there fighting life, and causing division in this world. Turn the TV off, turn the internet off, take 5, 10 minutes and pray a decade of the Rosary. Calm yourself down. It really does work. But how are we going to know if it works if we don't try it? So this is the month of the Rosary, Our Lady of the Rosary. So let's try that. Let's try it in simplicity. Keep your prayer life simple. Let's try it in humility. We're not the center of the world. God is. Let's get ourselves out of the center and Jesus to the back, to the center of our lives. And then let's trust Him with all the concerns and cares that are going on in our lives. Pray the Rosary every day during this month of October. Prayer is going to be simple, humble, and let's trust God. God bless you.